I'm Kerry Rowett, and this is the Align and Attract podcast, helping you to create your version of an aligned business. Let's dive into today's episode. Today I'm talking with Emma Lovell, and I know you're going to love this conversation. Emma is an author, she's a master of ceremonies, a speaker, and a business coach, and she supports people to combine business, travel, and self-care. And she's all about the pleasure lifestyle. And she has a brand new book out called Bleisure. I bought my copy when I was up at Noosa for Tash Corbin's conference. That's where I met Emma for the very first time. When I bought Emma's book and told her that I'd also published a book, she went and purchased my book pretty much straight away. And so we have been loving on each other's books. And so Emma is a personal branding and a remote business expert, and she's been running her consulting and coaching business for 15 years. She has traveled to 75 countries around the world. She runs rest and receive retreats, and she also hosts a podcast called The Emma Lovell Show. And I'm also on Emma's podcast. Emma is just so much fun. She does share in this episode that she really feels like she's in a messy middle right now. It's been a theme of several of the interviews that I have shared recently. And I think it's so great to hear from people when they are moving through those muddier waters. And sometimes this can happen. I see it quite a lot when you are at a peak moment in your business in terms of having a book launch or something else that looks really exciting and expansive, and yet behind the scenes, things might be feeling quite stirred up, and you might be recognizing where you are wanting to create change. So I know you're going to get so much out of this episode. Let's dive in. Welcome, Emma. I am so excited to have you on the podcast today.
I am so excited because I am a listener, Kerry, and I've been binging your podcast, using it as my own little, I don't know, you're like my podcast coach at the moment, as in coaching via podcast, and then keep going to your DMs. I'm like, I'm listening to this. And you're probably like, I don't know, what are you talking about? I talk about 20 different things. It's been wonderful. So I'm excited to be here.
I'm so delighted to have you. And one of the things we're going to be talking about today is your new book, Bleisure. So congratulations on having published your book, because I know this is a really big dream for you. And would you like to start out by talking about that?
Yeah, so the book, The Art of Bleisure, was published August 2024, but I said I was going to write a book when I was 19. I'm now 37, so 18 years ago. 2007, I got back from a year traveling the world as a little 19 Delulu person, and was like, I'll write a book about it. And it's funny because it is in part that book. The book was going to be about how to travel, like how I'd managed to do it, as how you could have a gap year, and even wanted to have little like, why don't you do this, or this is how, tips and stuff. But then, I was 19, I was going to uni life. Now knowing what I went through, I was like, okay, she wasn't ready. And I had a few, and I've even got it in the back in the acknowledgements. There's a few times in my life where I got the nods that it was going to happen. And I think a great book, which I'm sure you've read, is Big Magic by Liz Gilbert. And sort of that, like, the ideas in the cloud. And I had a psychic tell me, like, it's just in the cloud, it just hasn't dropped down. And what we thought it was going to be was a business and a travel book. And then it ended up being a business travel book and self-care and my life. And that's not what I imagined. But that's the book that comes. And I think sometimes you just have to go with what comes. And it was just that I needed that time and the experience to gather that. And even 5 years ago, I thought I was going to write a business book, but I didn't have the vision and probably the resilience to stay true to the vision to have this book that I'm deeply proud of, and that to me is a legacy. This is my legacy. This is my contribution to the world. If I do nothing else, I've shown people that you can live your life now, and you can love your life now, and you can do things differently.
Yes, and I am loving the book. I haven't quite finished, but it's so fun and you're so focused on that mission of like living a life that you love, living now. And so you've got this concept, this word pleasure. So it's business and leisure. So it's really about how you can maximize the experiences you do have. And I think we're very much on the same page with this actually, because we met in Noosa at a business conference. I know for me personally, I was up there for 6 nights
Mm.
because I was embracing the concept of pleasure. Yes, I'm going away for a work trip, but then I'm adding on days because I want time to spend with friends and in this beautiful location. And this is really what pleasure is all about, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that would be called like as well, I would call that like a pleasure trip. And I had a really interesting conversation with somebody because what sometimes people, the objection is, oh, well, I'm not working anymore, or I don't have a business, or oh, I have this happening. And I think throughout the book, I've answered that it's like, it's actually not just about this one like thing. And this is such a classic, beautiful pleasure trip. Perfect marrying of business and some leisure and some travel and some self-care. Beautiful time. But what I was on a podcast and this woman had an aha because she was like, I've been thinking about it as a pleasure business. And how do I bring the leisure and that into the business? Whereas you're talking about a pleasure life. And so then, I've pleasured too hard where I've done a trip and I've tried to include everything. And actually, it doesn't always have to be all the three things. It doesn't have to be all the things all at once. It's that longer term overview of, am I living a life I love? Am I finding this harmony between my work and my life and taking care of myself and being with people? It's the harmony, and I don't say balance. So yeah, a pleasure life is what I'm proposing.
Ooh, I am loving this and yeah, resonating so much. And I'm sure the listeners are too. So I'd love to pick on this point you made around living a life that you love. So, what is it that you do? Like, do you spend time really reflecting on what that looks like for you, or are you more experimental? How do you get that bigger picture of what it is that you're wanting to create?
Well, I'm really clear on my passion, and I'm really clear on one of my strongest values, which is my value is freedom and my passion is travel. And for me, I don't um, live to work, I work to live. And to me, living is traveling. So, I'm very motivated by that. I know what my key core motivation is. It's freedom. And to me, travel, freedom go hand in hand. Um, but I think living a life you love, the reason I came about to it, I've been saying it, I'd kind of been saying it when I was personal branding. I was, so before being a pleasure coach, I was a personal branding coach. And the thing that I loved about that work was I have a marketing background, I have a business background, a communications background, but it was actually seeing people, and particularly women, reconnect to who they were and what that I was saying back then. And I found a little video that I'd made like 3 years ago, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's the same message now. But it's like, what do you love? What do you want your life to look like? And that's who you are, and then that's how you present it. And it's knowing who you are. That was the work that I loved doing. Now I know who I am and I know what I love, but a lot of people don't. And it makes me sad, deeply sad. And it's because of conditioning in life. We've been to all these roles and, experiences have been piled upon us that we don't even know. I don't know what I love. And so what it is, and you may not know, and it might be kind of an existential question at this stage, but I wanted to move away from a question of what, like success, like what does success look like? Because success is a point in time and it's a milestone and it changes and it shifts. But asking yourself every single day, am I living what I love now? That's the now is important, because the life I loved a year ago, 5 years ago, in 5 years' time, they're different. And so I can check in with myself daily. Am I living a life I love? And if I'm not, the answer doesn't have to be yes. Then why? What's wrong? And I know you talk a lot about alignment. And so it's like, what's happening today? It's because I'm stressed. It's because I'm busy. It's because I didn't get to have a new experience and see the world differently. I didn't get to have a cuddle with my son. I feel overwhelmed. So, okay, what can I do about that? And it's not like a snap fix, but it's like an awareness. And it's just like a checkpoint every day. Am I living the life I love? No. Okay, well, I'll take a step forward. I'll take a step closer to that.
Mm. I want to pick up on what you said there, because I'm sure there's people listening who are like, might be finding, I'm asking myself that question. Am I living a life that I love? And I know that I'm not, right? And sometimes there might be multiple things that need to change in order to get to that point. And I think people can sometimes get quite overwhelmed about where can I start or where should I start? So what would your advice be there?
Well, the first point is usually like self-care and like, what are you doing for yourself? Like, because it all comes back to you. And it's that, you ask people what they want or what does a life they love look like. And they're like, my family is this and my business is that and everyone around me and outside, outside, outside. And I'm like, no, I asked you what you love. I asked you what you want. And I'm sure you find this too. What do you want is quite a hard question. So we might have to keep asking ourselves that. But I mean, a friend keeps saying to me, when I might be like a bit overwhelmed, she's like, a tired mind, that's your tired mind. First thing maybe is like, get some more sleep. Like, I think we go back to basics. And even, yesterday I went and jumped in the ocean and I didn't have to go to the beach. I didn't go to the beach for half an hour and set up my towel and do all these things. I literally drove to the water, leapt in, leapt out, put my towel on and went. And so it's like, sometimes it's like it's a simple little change. It's like, I want to be the person who goes to the beach every day. I don't have to go to the beach every day for an hour. I go to the beach for 2 minutes. So that's a step closer, but I could be like, oh no, it's all too hard. And I can't be that person because I'm not that person now. So I think it's sort of looking at the basics. First, and self-care is like, what does self-care look like to me? What is a little moment of joy I can get? What's a little thing that I love? And you start to do more of that and you're like, well, that made me feel good. Oh, I'll do a bit more of that. So I'll do a little bit more of that. And it has to come back to you, because I know that when I'm happy and I'm well and I'm good, my husband and son are going to be, my husband really goes, go on the Bali trip, go on the conference, go on the thing, because he knows I'll be better for it.
And sometimes we do think, oh, it is the going to the conference. And lucky you, Kerry, you got to have 6 nights away. I could never do that. Or, doing some kind of big trip. But I really love what you're saying here, that really it does start with the basics. And it's so true. Like when you look at the happiness research, what it really comes back to is such basic things like sleep, nutrition, movement, doing things that still your mind. And you also then mentioned moments. So we can miss those opportunities within a very ordinary, typical day that might be busy, might be filled with responsibilities, but actually you can create moments of joy within that. And you just need to seek them out, don't you? And you just need to be very intentional about that.
And well, I was just in New Zealand at a retreat, and one of the things that kept coming up was, what do I want? And I want love, and I want love with my husband and son, and I just want to be with them, and I want connection with them, and I want to soak them in. And then it's kind of, I could go and then berate myself and go, well, what the hell am I doing then in New Zealand away from them? But actually, it was like going there helped me reconnect and realize that that's something I wanted. But also then we did a FaceTime, and my husband said, before we called, he said, I love mummy so much. I miss mummy so much. And then we called, and that could make me sad and that could make me upset. But then we had our conversation, and I saw that he's happy and well and they're having fun. And it's like, they also need that time together as well. So I don't need to be with my son 24/7 in order to love him. I don't need to be with my husband 24/7 in order to love him. I think I love him more because we don't have that. And we were sad on Sunday. He had to go away on a work trip and we were both sad. And I was like, but I wrote to him and I said, you deserve to have this time away and you deserve to go and do what you love on this work trip. So he's out catching sharks and tagging them in the ocean. That's his job. And that's important for you. And I love you and I'll miss you, but it's okay.
I think that taking permission and also giving permission is really important here because, I talked about going away for 6 nights. And when I was going away, my husband was exactly the same. It's like, you need this. You need to go away and you need to have a great time. And this will be great for your business and it will be great for you. And we are going to be totally fine. and we're going to have a great time without you as well. And so I know that some people can feel guilty about doing things for themselves, especially bigger things, but I think it's important to remember that this can be a really positive experience all round. And it doesn't have to be the case that because you're getting something that you want, that other people are negatively impacted. And if you feel like that, sometimes that is just a story that you can deal with rather than turn it into a fact.
That's a them thing as well. So it's like, well, then what are you dissatisfied with that you're so upset by my enjoyment or my, what's, and I think I've sort of don't get jealousy that much anymore. Or if I get a jealousy, it's like, oh, why am I jealous? Like, what is that feeling? Yeah, I still feel it. I'm not going and not immune, but it's like, I'm just quicker to go, oh, what's that telling me? And resentment. And I did, before we got on, I pulled out a card, my favorite card, because resentment is such a quick check-in now going, oh, my boundaries are being pushed. There's a boundary issue here. Like, what is it? And then I can look into that. And it's like, I don't want my book to create jealousy and envy and resentment. I want it to create inspiration and motivation and encouragement.
I love that. And to pick up on something you just said as well about, noticing those moments of jealousy, noticing those moments of resentment. I think this is a really big part of creating a life that you love, is noticing when you're not feeling that, and then either giving yourself the mindset shift. So in the case of something like jealousy, it's like, if I'm feeling jealous, it is just showing me something that I want for myself. Do I want it in that form? Yes, no. Am I willing to do what it takes? Yes, no. And if it's resentment, yes, looking at the boundary. And same for the other things that might come up, and seeing those emotions or feelings of dissatisfaction as something that you can recognize and then do something about, and that only enhances your journey to create what it is that you want.
Yeah. And it's, something else that sort of, oh, it's gone actually. No, I'm going to leave it. I had a moment. I was like, no, it's gone. Doesn't need to be said.
Perfect. And so I want to come back to what you said as well around, really leaning into this life that you love, because I feel like these are really useful questions for the listeners to lean into here as well. And so you were asking about, your key value. And I think it's a question for everyone to ask themselves right now. If we were to say, like, what is your most important value today at this time in your life? Like, what is that? And then the other question to ask is, what is my passion?
Yeah.
And I do really see that passions can change. So you do have a young child and you're like, my passion is travel. And so I know that you do that with your child, which you can talk about in a moment, and your value is freedom. But for some people, if they're in their little children era, like those passions, those values, they might have changed or they might be different. And it's knowing that is totally okay as well. And we all go through seasons, don't we? Where something can be really important in a particular season. I had a really big season of travel in my 20s, but it's not, a core passion right now at this time in my life like it was then. So what is my core value, my most important value at this time? What is my biggest passion? And then you ask those questions too. Who am I?
Yeah.
And then what do I love? Which we went on to explore. And so just allowing yourself these kinds of moments to do that reflection, it's so important, isn't it?
Oh, that's huge. And I think it's challenging work to do by yourself. And so, sometimes you do need the mirror of someone else. And it did click back into me what I was going to say. And it is the seasons. And it is I think what some people would look at what I'm doing and look at my book and just feel so overwhelmed and be like, I don't want to travel like her. And I actually say, please don't. Like, you don't have to do it this way. And the book, I had a coach and she was saying the book was prescriptive, but it's a how-to, and we called it a how-to with heart. But it's not prescriptive in that it's not a framework. It's not a set. I have a Venn diagram of what pleasure looks like, and there's a harmony, but it's a sort of moving. It's always going to be moving and changing. But what I'm actually offering up is like a suite, like a buffet of options. And just within that, you can see, take and pick which ones, or pick and mix, which ones suit you and which ones you like. I actually actively advocate against not doing it the way I've done it at times. And it's finding the way that harmony is for you. And if you're in a season, someone said to me, I don't want to travel and run my business, so I'm not going to read your book. And I was like, that's a direct message. I was like, oh, thank you. It was just, I made me laugh because I was like, oh, I'm really talking to my audience apparently, because she thinks I'm talking to her saying, buy the book, travel the world, make money. And I'm like, that's cool. But what I'm inviting people to do is having a travel mindset and having a mindset of new experience and awe and wonder, and finding, your leisure. Actually say leisure is business or work, travel and leisure, and business or work or making money. And even my mum is still making money. She's got super, she's got shares, she's got an inheritance, and she's retired, but she's still making money. Travel and leisure. Leisure is leisure. So what is your leisure? And that might be sitting in the garden reading. It might be having coffees with friends. It might be going for a surf down the road. That's your decision. And then self-care. And again, that's what it looks like to you. So it's just opportunities and possibilities that I'm presenting. And again, I come back to that. The goal is to inspire, motivate, encourage you to discover what you want. And at the back of each chapter, I've put questions so that people can do that reflective work.
Yes, because the most important thing, isn't it, that you're doing what is actually right for you. And I think so many people who are listening are just so on board with that messaging already and are definitely on that journey, because that's what attracts them to, thinking about alignment and creating an aligned business and weaving together those elements that are most important for you. And you talked about, income streams. And one of the things that is really interesting about your journey is how you have turned so many of the things that you've done in your life into a business or into an income stream. So I wonder if you could share a few of the jobs that you have had.
Well, I always think the most funny is that I used to work in a dog kennels. So I picked up dog poo for work. It was very lucrative. And then that was in my teens, early 20s. And then in my later 20s, I started a pet sitting business. And that pet sitting business funded holidays. It meant I had zero living costs because I was living in other people's homes and getting paid. And it actually led me to buying a house. So in 7 months, I had zero living costs. I was able to save $42,000 deposit for a investment property. So, which took me a number of years. And Kerry and I both know Denise Duffield Thomas, and I've done my money mindset work. It took me years to see that as an income stream, because I saw it as a debt, and I saw it as well, I get the money, but I've got to pay for the house. I didn't acknowledge this abundance that was coming in every 2 weeks to my account, which sometimes was really, like, the way that the flow worked was really, really helpful. It was such a great aha to stop. And I think doing that work over the last few years has made me look back, and it's like, far out, man, I am a money magnet. Like, I will find money, and literally, like, I've sold gold, some old rings from an ex-boyfriend and people that I didn't want anymore. I have done mystery shopping, where you go and you go into a shop and you then write a report. I run retreats, so and I have a travel partner in India. I earn a commission for helping people have their dream holiday. So many, many, many ways, coaching, writing, consulting, speaking. Yeah, I've earned money in cash. I've earned value. I've earned vouchers and experiences. Yeah, income, cash, but also value. I've earned a lot of value through my work as well.
I love that. And I think there's this really creative and playful approach that you bring to life and that you bring to business, and you're happy to try new things, aren't you? And so tell us a bit more about what your business looks like now then. So you are a pleasure coach and you run retreats.
Yeah, and we were just talking off air. I'm in the messy middle because I am in a transition, and it's the stepping into who I'm becoming. And I've wanted to say I'm an author for 18 years. Probably before, probably had a little bit of a fantasy or whatever about being a writer or being an author, but quite comfortably said I'm a writer, and I'm a writer at heart. But to say I'm an author, that meant a lot. And so I'm getting more comfortable with that. And it was funny, I went on a retreat last week and having to explain, and because I wasn't doing the work right then, I was sort of went back into that I'm going to do speaking, I'm going to do presenting, I'm going to run these things, when I am doing it and I have been doing it. It just looks different. And that's a little bit of me coming into alignment. And one of the things that's blocking me at the moment, honestly, is I have had a rebrand done. And so I've been on this journey of stepping into my personal brand, stepping away from a business that I had for 14 years, stepping into a personal brand, and not having that visual representation, like the piece coming together, that like I am it, but it's just that like it feels like it's just not there yet. I'm also in the process of pulling out some of a huge chunk of my business, which has developed in the last 2 years, and that is my retreats. So I host retreats, but also in the last 18 months, I've started coaching and training people on how they can run profitable retreats. And this has just grown so organically and just become that I'm now the retreats queen. The retreats queen. I'm Emma Lovell, the pleasure coach. So what I'm doing is pulling the retreats out, and it's its own business. And so then I'm stepping into founder of that business and building that up with the view. And I did that well with my pet sitting. I built it always with the view that it wasn't about me, and I wasn't going to be the deliverer, that I was the founder. And so it's really fun kind of starting that. And so now, yeah, the primary business will be speaking. I want to get in front of as many people as possible. I want the book in as many hands as possible, because to me, the pleasure, it's a movement, the pleasure movement. And I want more people out there living a life they love, not burning out, not subscribing to the work, and then I get to play. That's what I want. So that takes a shift of focus, and it's stepping into that new way of speaking. It's just that me becoming comfortable with it. So yeah, I'm in this sort of interesting middle, and I put up a post today on LinkedIn about like, hey, by the way, I'm a speaker, and here's what I talk about. And so it's just that like, okay, first step, we're going in the direction, and I know it will become more and more comfortable. And it's the work that I did with people for their personal brand, like stepping into who you're becoming. And I'm just going through the process myself.
And when we go through that process, we often wish it could feel neater and more organized and more stable than what it actually does. But when we do go into that deeper work and really uncover, like, who is it that I am now? Who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? What it is that I'm really desiring to create, that when you allow yourself to really go there, it does feel messy. So I really appreciate you talking about that, because oftentimes we hear from people when they're on the other side of that. And I'm sure there'll be so many people, who see the beautiful book you have out there, and, we look at the online persona or the social media presence for anyone, and you can think that person has just got it all together. They're just at the pinnacle, and we can be at the pinnacle in one area of our lives whilst also feeling somewhat messy in other ways, right?
And I say it's clunky, and I always say this to my client, it's going to feel clunky and it's going to feel a bit disjointed. But what really set me off a few weeks ago was that a post went out, and I have VAs who support me, and this post went out and it just felt so not me, and it felt so out of alignment, and it on paper it should have been correct. Like the words were taken sort of from my site, the photo was me, the colors were what we've been using, but altogether it just was like, no. And it really felt like I was phoning it in. And I just had this real moment of clarity, and it felt like my business has got away from me. And I felt very out of control. And it was like, no, I am the messenger. I am the message creator. It has to come from me. And I was just listening to one of your podcasts the other day, and I have to do some work around this, which is, because the challenge for me now is that my brand, my personal brand is the business. And so really, Emma Lovell, the person, and then Emma Lovell, the business and the brand, not attaching myself and worth and who is it to that. And I think, as I said, I think that not having that visual piece is kind of, I'm still 1 foot in the old, 1 foot in the middle. And so just navigating that, and it's big work. Like, this is big. I always know when I am on the precipice and I am going in that new direction. And so it's just that, like, stepping in. And there's also a letting go and a loss. Like, I will not do that work that I used to do. I'm looking at removing private coaching. So my primary services will be speaking, consulting, and a course that's coming with the book, The Bleisure Life Plan, because I want to have that bigger impact. And the one, as much as I love these engagements, it feels like an interruption and disruption at the moment. It feels like a disturbance to the mission, I guess. And so it's like, okay, well, I have to let go of that way of operating. And so, yeah, there's been a loss and a letting go, and then a stepping into this new thing. And it's a journey.
It sure is a journey. And there's 3 things I want to pick up that you said in there. And some of it mirrors what Emma shared on the podcast recently. But first of all, there's that self-honesty about what is working for you, and equally what is not working for you. And I think that is very important for each of us to do. And sometimes you might like something even, but it's actually not working for you. And it can be very difficult to let those things go. But if we don't, it can such a really hold us back, particularly if that thing takes up a lot of our time, but is not really leading us any closer to what it is that we most desire to create. And the second piece to pick up is around identity. And this is such a big part of the work I do with my clients, is that stepping into that identity of who it is that you're becoming. And, I really resonate with what you're saying around the personal brand. I'm sure everyone listening is as well, because most of my listeners, most of my clients do have a personal brand. And so it's very easy to over-personalize things that happen if you are seeing yourself as the business. But the business is still the business. And if we think about, how a business functions, it has services, it has transactions, it has messaging, it has branding. Like, all of those things exist, even if it's a personal brand. And those things are not you. So if somebody is not buying something from you, well, they're not buying that service or that product or that thing, but they were never buying you. You can change the services, you can change what the offers are, but you don't need to excessively personalize that or make that about you as a human being, because it's not.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that the case?
Well, as I was saying it, as you were saying that, I remembered a moment I had with my brand strategist. So I did work with a brand strategist because I'm just so close to it. And it was really nice getting to have that work done with me, because I do it with other people. And I had this moment where she did a diagram, like she's so brilliant at connecting the dots and taking out the jumble that's within me, because I'm so close to it, and connecting the dots and making it clear for me. And so she did a framework. I don't love diagrams and stuff. It's not how I work. She drew it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I get to be me. The business is here, and I get to be me, because for so many years, the business was me. It is me. And I think, as I'm saying that, no wonder I want to remove the one-to-one coaching, because that encourages people wanting me. And I want to give the content, and I want to give the brand experience. Of course, it's infused with me, but it's not me. And you don't always get me. I get to be Emma Lovell, the person. And so it is a really nice, and the same with the retreats business. I'm really setting that up as, this is the business, this is what you get. Oh, and I'm the founder, by the way.
Yes.
It's not sitting with me.
I love that. And it makes me think about, the book and, the concepts within the book. And I've done the same. And it's when you're bringing through thought leadership, you're creating a body of work. And a part of what that does is create intellectual property within the business, that you are creating programs and courses and books around that is not you. So you are taking what is inside your brain and the work that you might otherwise do with a client in a one-on-one capacity, and then you're packaging it, and then it allows you to actually market something that is not just you and not just your energy.
Thank you. I said to Kerry this was going to be a coaching session. That's just like, it's helped me come back to that clarity of why I'm doing this. And that was something that we have to communicate with a rebrand. Like, why are we doing this? Why was this now? And some people, you already kind of went through this, right? You already changed the name and you kind of have new color. The brand looks good. And it's like, but it wasn't, there's been so much work. And I would advise this to somebody, if you're looking to change your brand or step into your personal brand instead of working as a business name or vice versa, don't invest the day that you decide. Like, this was a year transition before I changed the Emma Lovell, and then it was another year of stepping into this, the Bleisure coach, and the work that we would have done, the investment I would have made last year would have been quite wasted in a way, because I needed time to get comfortable with that and to sit with that. And so we did a sort of like, I guess, a little aesthetic kind of pulling in, so it felt a bit more aligned, but I knew it wasn't done, it wasn't finished. And I'm so glad that I've had that time with the message. And even now I'm saying, like, now it's kind of going out there, and it's going to feel interesting. On 25th of November is the day we're saying we're going to roll out the brand. It's going to be really interesting to see how I feel with that. But the goal and the reason for this was the impact that I want to have, the legacy that I want to have, the people that I want to reach. And I just can't do that on a one-to-one basis. And that's the 15 years of the journey that I've had. And it was great. And it got me to where I am today. But this is where I want to take it.
Thank you. And so where I would like to finish up, we touched before on you having a young child, and travel is still, your biggest passion. And I know that you incorporate travel still into your life with your young child. So I wonder if you could share a little bit about what that looks like for you.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it's sort of non-negotiable, the travel, but I think you can't do it without a village, and you can't do it without support. So it's something that I want, but my husband, we have to make it work for both of us. So his support in coming with me, or if not coming with me, encouraging us to go. I mean, when there are times when I travel without him, having that support of grandparents or people who can help, kindy as well. But when we go away, the earlier trips where I went by myself with my son, I went to places where I had people. And so, and even we're going on a cruise in end of Jan, and 2 friends are coming with us. And I'm just such an advocate for like shared holidays. So going and doing experiences with other people, or if we can't, then doing a cruise where they have a kids club, or doing a tour where you don't have to think about the itinerary and you just get to ride along. Or I used to hate the idea of resorts and lying by the pool, but my goodness, Fiji is looking very attractive at the moment. And we're going to Bali next year. I've got a work trip, Bleisure, and my friend and I are going, and then our husbands and the children will fly over and we'll have a few days. And we are picking properties. We are only searching kid-friendly properties. And so I think I've learned to slow down, which probably doesn't sound like to the audience, but I have learned to slow down and build in a buffer. And I just have had the gift of, when you travel with a child, I think what people don't want to travel with a young child is because they're like, they won't remember it. That's the biggest argument I get. They won't remember it. Also, bit too expensive, bit too hard. That's just not for this time of life. And I just think you are robbing yourself of such a treasured time, because he is 3.5, and the way that he sees the world is so incredible. Like, the easiest way to tap into awe and wonder and see the world with new eyes is through a child. And the gift of traveling with him is just that we get to have those moments of joy and simple things, and that will stay in my heart forever, and it will stay in his, I think it will stay in his little body. And so support a bit more time, giving it a little bit more time, and just finding ways that you can. I think there's so many excuses, honestly, excuses or reasons why you can't. Sometimes it's a choice, and own it if it's a choice. But look at ways that you can, because I think the gift is just so great, and I'm incredibly grateful. And I just am loving this new way of traveling, new way of seeing the world, and I am so excited for the opportunities and the adventures that we're going to get together.
Amazing. Emma, could you finish off by letting us know where we can find you?
You can find me at emmalovell.au, my website, Instagram, emmalovell.au, LinkedIn, Emma Lovell, and look for the sequins and you'll find me. But and then my book is available, emmalovell.au/book, The Art of Bleisure, and it's currently #1 on Amazon Kindle, which is very exciting.
So fun. Thank you so much. I've just loved this conversation with you.
Thank you.
I hope you have loved this episode. You can connect with me on Instagram at Kerry Rowett. You can connect with Emma at emmalovell.au on Instagram. And you can find Emma's website at emmalovell.au. The links are in the show notes, including the link to sign up and join Emma's Adelaide book launch event for her new book, Bleisure. And I will also share a link to where you can find Emma's fabulous book. Thank you so much for being here. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do share it with a friend, and I can't wait to see you next time.